The Mello TV Evening News at 8 is brought to you by the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Coronavirus is in Jamaica, and I know you feel scared and worried. But you can't let COVID-19 divide us. Coronavirus infects all kinds of people. It doesn't discriminate. So why should you? When someone coughs or sneezes or shows signs of the virus, tell them to call 888-1-LOVE immediately. And remember, stay 3 feet away, but don't attack or disrespect them, because we're all in this thing together. Come on, Jamaica, cut the hate and don't discriminate. Let us stand together and fight COVID-19 as one family, one nation.
Tonight, Prime Minister announces that the island-wide curfews and additional measures have been extended.
The island-wide curfew will remain at 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. daily until November 16, 2020.
2 additional persons have died. 1 death is under investigation, and 64 new cases of COVID-19 have been recorded on the island in the last 24 hours. Still tonight, with damage caused by Tropical Storm Zeta at $2 billion and counting, Prime Minister Andrew Holness has announced that each MP will be allocated $1.5 million from the Housing Fund.
And this is to be used directly by the NWA according to areas of greatest national need and strategic importance to the productivity of the economy.
And NWC says sections of St. James will be without water tomorrow as it carries out urgent maintenance work at the Pit 4 deep well in the parish. Good evening. In breaking news tonight, COVID-19 testing has been completed at the Golden Age home in St. Andrew, where 87 positive cases have been identified and 1 death recorded related to the virus. Now, the Ministry of Health and Wellness is reporting that of the 620 residents and employees tested over the 3-day period, the 87 results returned positive for COVID-19, while 533 were negative. The positive cases include 65 residents and 22 employees. Now, all the positive cases remain stable and asymptomatic, except for the first case, who has since died. In the meantime, a meeting was held with the management team and cleaning service provider to outline the corrective measures to be taken at the facility. Training of employees and the service provider started on Monday, October 26. The daily visit by medical officers will continue as the health team ensures that the positive cases are appropriately isolated and are being monitored closely. The Ministry of Health and Wellness says it continues its work with the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development to ensure that the emergency protocols will continue to be observed and that all the infection prevention and control measures are in place. Now, Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, Desmond McKenzie, outlined plans to implement a pilot program to monitor visitation at the Golden Age home.
We are presently devising a program that we are going to be sharing with the Ministry of Health shortly that will put us in a position to create some avenue for visits that would not take individuals into the infirmary itself, but something like a drive-through or something that we are presently working on. And once we have concluded those arrangements, we will share it with the Ministry of Health and try to make it possible. But in the meantime, the staff within the infirmaries have been going through their paces and have been creating an environment to make the residents feel comfortable. So there are recreational activities that are taking place. We are putting in the necessary infrastructure, providing the resources to ensure that we continue to provide and make the infirmaries conducive. I want to assure the country that the government is on top of our infirmaries. Despite the slips that occurred at the Vineyard Town facility, we must commend the staff of the infirmary for the work that they have been doing to keep our infirmaries COVID-free.
In the meantime, the Ministry of Health and Wellness has reported that 2 additional persons have died from COVID-19 and another death is currently under investigation. Now, this means Jamaica has now recorded 198 deaths from the virus. The deceased are a 75-year-old male from St. James and a 73-year-old male from Kingston and St. Andrew. The Ministry of Health and Wellness also reported that there were 64 new positive cases in the last 24 hours, taking the total of confirmed COVID-19 cases to 8,851. Now, of the newly confirmed cases, 36 are females and 25 are males, while the gender in 3 cases are awaiting confirmation. The ages of the infected persons range from 4 to 85 years. The cases were recorded in St. James with 22. Kingston and St. Andrew has recorded 15 cases. Westmoreland and Trelawney 5 cases each. Hanover has recorded 4 cases. Clarendon and St. Catherine 3 cases each. Portland has recorded 2 cases. Manchester, St. Anne, St. Elizabeth and St. Mary recorded 1 case each, while the parish classification for 1 case is currently unknown. In the meantime, there were 32 more recoveries, taking the total of recovered persons to 4,379. 106 persons are in hospital, where 15 are moderately ill and 3 critically ill. These patients are among the 4,155 confirmed active cases of COVID-19 in Jamaica. Now, to help slow the spread of the virus, extension of island-wide curfews and additional measures were also announced by Prime Minister Andrew Holness during a live digital press conference which ended moments ago.
After the spike in August and September, our growth in new cases has been slowing down and our recovery is increasing, which has resulted in the number of active cases showing moderate and modest decline. To further control the spike, the current measures, which were to expire on October 31st, are now being extended. The island-wide curfew will remain at 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. daily until November 16, 2020. As it relates to the provision of public transportation, the provision of public transportation by motor car being limited to 1 person, less than the maximum number of persons allowed to be carried under the relevant license, will remain in effect until November 16, 2020. As currently obtains, public transportation operators will be allowed 1 hour before and 1 hour after the curfew to get to and from base or home. We should note that passengers are not allowed during this 1 hour before and 1 hour after.
Prime Minister Holness also announced an extension to the stay-at-home orders and public gatherings.
A ban on funeral services and parties and other such events will continue until November 30, 2020. Burials will continue to be allowed, the restriction of 15 persons. Now, regular worship services operating in compliance with the established protocols will continue. Congregants are reminded that gatherings in excess of 15 persons are not allowed outside the place of worship. Now, the restrictions applicable to hospitals, nursing homes, and infirmaries remain in place until November 30th, 2020. The age limit for the stay-at-home measure remains at 65 until November 30th, 2020. Persons 65 years and older must therefore continue to stay at home, but will be allowed to leave home once each day for the necessaries of life. Now, given the high vulnerability of persons in this age group, particularly those with comorbidities, I cannot overemphasize the importance of strict adherence. Most of our deaths are of persons in this age cohort.
Still making news tonight, Minister of Science, Energy and Technology, Darrell Vaz, has announced that he is in the final stages of completing a COVID-19 technology plan. Minister Vaz, who made the announcement at the recent handing over of tablets at the Port Antonio Primary School, said, "Without connectivity, our students are at a disadvantage." According to the Energy Minister, his job is to make broadband available throughout the entire island in the shortest possible time, which he says in the short term means that his ministry is putting together a COVID-19 response technology plan. The minister added that the provision of information and communication technologies in education is a major priority of the government. In other news tonight, with damage caused by Tropical Storm Zeta at $2 billion and counting, Prime Minister Andrew Holness says that each member of Parliament will be allocated $1.5 million from the Housing Fund. More on this story with Tamara McHale.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness has reported that a preliminary bill presented to government so far by the National Works Agency over damages caused by Tropical Storm Zeta is at $2 billion and counting. The Prime Minister, who was addressing the sitting of the House of Representatives yesterday, also said each member of Parliament will be allocated $1.5 million accessible from the Housing Fund to assist with repairs in their constituencies, and focus will be maintained on cleaning critical drains and reopening blocked roads.
To address the repair and rehabilitation works associated with the rains that will total approximately 2 billion Jamaican dollars. So at this time, we will budget to expend $1 billion to directly address damage due to rains, and this is to be used directly by the NWA according to areas of greatest national need and strategic importance to the productivity of the economy. So that's immediately, as soon as the Ministry of Finance is able to lay hands on those funds, that will be available to start the rehabilitation and repair process according to the strategic direction that was given earlier. So we will be looking at clearing block roads, desilting drains and clearing drains, patching roads. But the overall strategic, of course, perspective is we will have to look at where is the area of greatest need, and something we have to come to terms with, Madam Speaker, in this constituency.
Prime Minister Holness further outlined that parishes such as St. Catherine, Kingston and St. Andrew, Manchester and Clarendon are among the parishes mostly affected by the storm, and that there has been a significant 60% damage done to parochial roads.
In addition, that is to the $1 billion, each constituency will be allocated $1.5 million from the Housing Fund to assist with repairs to housing infrastructure that has been brought to the attention of the Member of Parliament. Some MPs, even though I'm getting a good rapping on the desk, suggesting that this is a good move, there are those who are petrified of such announcements. Because I say 1.5 million, but what is heard is a figure multiple of this.
Yes.
And the pressures will start to build. I wish to say that the 1.5 million, it may sound like a large sum, but if you were to consider that over 100 houses that you may have to address, it doesn't come down to much.
For Mello TV News, I am Tamar McHale.
Meanwhile, during a live press conference that ended moments ago, Prime Minister Holness encouraged all Jamaicans to be cautious when traversing the roads as more rains are expected this week into the weekend.
Preliminary indications are that the damage to parochial roads and drains will run in excess of $700 million. There is currently now a trough, and this will bring even more rains. And the forecast is that we will have afternoon rainfall tomorrow and Friday, with an increase in showers and thunderstorms expected for the weekend. I urge all Jamaicans to exercise great caution when traversing our roads and pay attention to the alerts and warnings from the authorities. Now, especially during this period of the pandemic, we must emphasize that we have to be very strategic in how we allocate and use scarce resources, both to be administered in the management of the pandemic and also in the management of these very disruptive and oftentimes very destructive weather events.
In news from St. Catherine, 40-year-old Delvin Yethman, otherwise called Clayton, a vendor of St. John's Road in the parish, has been missing since October 18. He is of dark complexion, slim build, and is bald. Now, reports coming into our news center from the Spanish Town Police are that Yethman was last seen at his home wearing a grey t-shirt, light brown shorts, and a pair of sneakers at approximately 12:10 p.m. He has not been heard from since then. Now, anyone knowing the whereabouts of Delvin Yethman is being asked to contact the Spanish Town Police Station at 876-984-2305, Police 119 Emergency, or the nearest police station. In a Mello TV news update, investigators have now confirmed that one of two men killed in an alleged shootout with police on Monday night was a suspected contract killer who was wanted for multiple murders and shootings in St. Catherine and St. Anne. Now, late yesterday, the police identified the two men as suspected contract killers, Ashado Boise McFarlane and Jamil Blackman Smith. Reports are that a team from the Counter-Terrorism and Organized Crime Branch, CTOC, were conducting an intelligence-driven operation in the Duncan's Pen area. This in connection with the investigation of the kidnapping and suspected murder of 29-year-old restaurant supervisor Kenroy McPherson. According to the Corporate Communications Unit, CCU, the police moved to intercept a white Toyota Fielder motor car in which the men were traveling when the occupants opened fire. The police said they returned the fire, killing McFarlane and Smith. However, a third man escaped. The police say a Remington 12-gauge shotgun was seized. Investigators have since identified McFarlane as a contract killer who was operating in the parishes of St. Catherine and St. Anne. In the year 2020 alone, investigators say he has been wanted and sought after by the police in connection with 8 murders in the Linstead, Bogwalk, and Riversdale communities in the parish. Additionally, he was also wanted in connection with 1 case of murder in Ocho St. Anne and was a person of interest in 2 others. He was also wanted by the police in St. Anne in connection with other cases. Continuing with the news, investigators from the Jamaica Constabulary Force's Narcotics Division have charged the 2 Jamaica Defense Force JDF soldiers who were arrested in connection with a large seizure of marijuana in Gutter, St. Elizabeth on October 13. The men who have been charged with illegal possession of firearm and ammunition, shooting with intent, possession and dealing of marijuana, and taking steps preparatory to export marijuana have been identified as 39-year-old Rowan Mendez of a Kingston 10 address and 38-year-old Robert Smith of Balaclava district in St. Elizabeth. Now, reports coming into our news center are that at about 9:30 p.m., a team comprised of members of the Narcotics and Westmoreland divisions, assisted by members of the JDF, acting upon intelligence, attempted to intercept a minivan in the area. However, the occupants of the vehicle fired upon the team and discarded several packages as they attempted to flee. Now, the vehicle was eventually intercepted, and the two men, who were later confirmed to be JDF members, were arrested. Their licensed firearms, the marijuana, and the vehicle the men were traveling in were seized. The marijuana weighed more than 1,500 pounds and has a street value of over 6 million Jamaican dollars. The vehicle is the property of the JDF. Now, following investigations and formal interviews, they were yesterday charged and are scheduled to appear in the St. Elizabeth Parish Court on October 30. In news from St. James, water disruptions will affect sections of St. James tomorrow due to urgent maintenance work at the Pit 4 deep well in the parish. More on this story with Ophelia Miller.
The National Water Commission, NWC, says sections of St. James will be without water tomorrow as it carries out urgent maintenance work at the Pit 4 deep well in the parish. The disruption will last between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. Areas that will be affected are Pit 4, sections of Granville, Cartagena Housing Scheme, and sections of Retirement. The NWC is urging customers to store water for use during this period of disruption. I'm Ophelia Miller reporting for Mello TV News.
And those were the stories making news. I'll return with a recap. We'll now take a break and then join Christopher Scott with sports.
Coronavirus is in Jamaica, and I know you feel scared and worried. But you can't let COVID-19 divide us. Coronavirus infects all kinds of people. It doesn't discriminate. So why should you? When someone coughs or sneezes or shows signs of the virus, tell them to call 888-1-LOVE immediately. And remember, stay 3 feet away, but don't attack or disrespect them, because we're all in this thing together. Come on, Jamaica. Cut the hate and don't discriminate. Let us stand together and fight COVID-19 as one family, one nation.